Slipping now. Look what I'm whipping now. This is America. Don't catch you slipping now. Don't catch you slipping now. Look what I'm whipping now. Look how I'm geeking now. I'm so fitted. I'm on Gucci. I'm so pretty. I'm gonna get it. Watch me move. This is Sally. That's a tool. On my Kodak. Black. Know that. Work it. 100 bands. Contraband. I got the plug on who a hawker. Whoa. They gonna find you like Baka. Blow. America.
I just checked my follow and listen. You motherfuckers owe me.
Get your money, black man. Black man. 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 Get down.
Just a black man in this world. Just a buckle. Hey, just a black man in this world. An expensive foreign jet. Just a big dog, yeah. My Kindle came in the backyard. From a barbarian life to a dog.
Prejudice. Wrote a song about it. Like to hear it? Here it go. Free your mind.
I'm not saying I'm going to rule the world or I'm going to change the world, but I guarantee that I will spark the brain that will change the world. And that's our job.
Tell me why. Why can't we live together? Tell me why. Why can't we live together?
sun-kissed by God's lips. This is Coy with your black tea sip. I'm sipping power to pour you the truth. Go grab your cup. Let's fill it up.
All right. Happy Friday to all you melanated beauties, sun-kissed by God's lips. This is your girl, Coy, with the black tea sip. And so today we have a lot to talk about. A lot has gone on in the world, and the state of the black union must be discussed, and who better than me to do just that. So let's jump in, because I was a little concerned when there was so much discussion from the defense in the George Floyd murder trial, because the defense has decided to rest on the fact that that they believe that he died of fentanyl, right? And that's what they have said. They've doubled down on it. That's what that is. Except it makes no sense. Now, what I felt like should have been said, and clearly they're far smarter than I, because I felt like that this whole idea that this was the day that the fentanyl or whatever other drug, because I think they said fentanyl and cocaine, that was the day that it consumed him. That was the day that he was overtaken by the drugs. It just so happened to also be simultaneously with Derek Chauvin's knee on his neck. And so there was this idea from the defense that he was going to die any old way. Anywho, he up out of here, about to form. All the things that you would say, right? It makes no sense. I told y'all a long time ago, my grandmother used to say, if it doesn't make sense, it's a lie somewhere. And so with that being said, I felt like that the prosecution should have tackled the defense by saying that this idea that he had consumed this amount of drugs and it was going to take him out on this particular day and, separate independently and away from the fact of the knee being on the neck. I felt like they should have said something to the effect of, if this is a person who has done drugs, they've built up a tolerance. I'm not saying that drugs couldn't kill him, but the idea that it killed him on that particular day, there was some absurdity in it, right? That's what I was thinking to myself. I was like, okay, well, that's utterly ridiculous. And then, again, greater minds than mine, because they didn't do that. Because I'm watching it every day like you all are, and I have my commentary. But they didn't, because they knew that the Assistant Attorney General, Jerry Blackwell, whose son is Council Member Blackwell for Minneapolis, Minnesota. So this is a public serving family, servant leaders at their finest. And Jerry Blackwell stood there, poised and full of grace. I loved everything about it, except for the fact that George Floyd had to die for us to be introduced to Assistant Attorney General Jerry Blackwell. But what he did was he interviewed 3 medical professionals. And in interviewing these 3, and I'm saying it's an interview. I understand they're on the stand and the jury and they're testifying, but it was more like 2 colleagues talking, if you will, 2 professionals, I guess 2 different areas, health and law doesn't necessarily constitute colleagues, except for the fact that they are now intertwined in seeking justice for George Floyd and his family and his daughter in particular, Gianna Floyd. And what I loved about Dr. Tobin in particular is the fact that he sat there like a HBCU college professor. He went several times to pull his necktie down and to unbutton his collar almost seamlessly, and asked the jury members to touch their neck And he went as far as to give me and you as viewers an education, because he went on to tell us exactly where our Adam's apple is and talked about the cartilage around your Adam's apple and how it protects your voice box. I did not know what an apple was supposed to do. All I know is that a woman is not supposed to be, her Adam's apple is not supposed to be seen. That's all I really knew about an Adam's apple. Okay, I must admit. However, when he went on to discuss it, you couldn't help but participate. When he said, touch your neck, I was touching my neck at home. And you heard the other reporters say they too engaged and they touched their neck. And in touching their necks, he went on to describe there's a large muscle on your left-hand side. All of this was very important because I loved Jerry Blackwell. I'm going to go ahead right now and let you know it's not going to be a secret who's going to get the Black Excellence Award. You all take a guess. But he went on, Jerry Blackwell, and said, Dr. Tobin, you had an opportunity to review the film, and he said, and so Dr. Tobin is such a great teacher, educator. He is a man, a lover of knowledge and information, that he wants to share it. Remember those kind of professors at our HBC? I'm sorry now, I know it's some PWIs that are listening to this show. Y'all don't get mad at me now. Y'all don't get mad at me. Because I'm sure y'all had some great professors too. But right now in this moment, this is for my HBCU brothers and sisters, because I felt like I was at school. I wish that I had somebody there with me to kind of look. You know, when it used to get good in class and you would almost be like church. We would high-five each other because it got good. The knowledge, the education, the outpouring. It was like church. I just hate that we didn't get this information and this knowledge except for the fact that George Floyd had to die. Y'all go grab your cups. I'm going to fill it up. We're going to talk about the George Floyd trial. We're going to talk about Georgia, the state of Georgia, and how the governor, Kemp, didn't see it coming. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back to this call with the Black Tea Sip. Share if you want to know my further take on Dr. Tobin and Derek Chauvin and how he, as the old folks used to say, he just hooked up. In a minute.
Baby, ooh, baby. But still you
Do you want to find a stable job in a growing field? IT jobs such as network systems administrators, cybersecurity, programming, cloud, and computer systems analysts are expected to increase 25% by 2022. Texas Premier Technology Institute offers training for top certifications such as CompTIA, Cisco, and Microsoft in less than 12 weeks. And if you're unemployed or underemployed, you may qualify for free tuition. Contact TPTI at 1-888-490-TPTI or check them out on the web at tpti.us.
All right, and we're back. So I thought that was funny that Angelo played Beyonce. What the hell are you talking about? Well, I'm talking about a lot today. I'm talking about the fact that I felt like I was in school. I felt like I was at an HBCU. I felt like I was getting an education from Dr. Chauvin. Because what I really believe is, while if you're just joining us, I was kind of pontificating on the fact that I felt like the prosecution should have refuted this idea when he was when the defense was talking about how he could have, when he was dealing with the EMTs, and kind of talking to them and from a paramedic standpoint, could he have succumbed to a drug overdose and that kind of thing. And so I was kind of yelling from the rafters. I was like, wait, no, because if he's built up a tolerance, the idea that he had this amount of drugs in his system, and that, and then he expired due to the drugs and not the knee, because see, we're saying from the prosecution standpoint, and yes, I'm saying I'm part of the prosecution. We are saying, but for the knee on the neck, Mr. Floyd would still be here with his family. And it is the defense's job. I mean, everyone in the United States, in theory, anyway, I'm not sure in practicum, but in theory, should experience zealous representation, right? That's kind of what they say in the law, zealous representation. And so to that end, you find yourself yelling at the TV because the absurdity of this man dying because, and there's this, y'all know I'm going to go on and say it. I'm going to go on and say there's this idea, right, that he contributed to his own demise, that he took himself out, that it was his actions that caused him to die face planted in the pavement with 3 men on him, yelling for his life, begging to breathe. So this idea that this was happening and infuriated me. I found myself incensed. I wanted to jump through the TV. I had to turn it off and walk around and give me some water because I was not hearing what I wanted to hear. And right before the break, I was talking about Jerry Blackwell, who is the assistant attorney general in the state of Minnesota. Eloquent, poised, sophisticated, and humble, genuine in his interview of Dr. Tobin. And what the defense was not expecting, what I was not expecting, I guess what we were not expecting, because family, we all in this together. What we were not expecting is for them to have such a flawless prosecution. Because I'm telling y'all, I was like, wait a minute. This idea that he died because of cocaine use, he's built up a tolerance. So no, you might not take it, little defense man, because he's short. But we have to deal with George Floyd as George Floyd, because in the law, there is this thing called the Eggshell Theory. And it means you take the person as they come. So when in civil litigation, which of course is not this is criminal, but in civil litigation, which is really all about the money, punishing them in their pockets, we talk about the eggshell theory, and we say, well, if you T-bone someone and they crack their skull, you can't say, well, you know what, they are of the X amount, 1% of the population that has a thin skull on the left-hand side, right? You can't say that. You take them as they come. And so I thought about that with George Floyd. And I said to myself, no, that is ridiculous, because you take them as they come, and he would have built up a tolerance, right? I'm not saying people don't die from drug overdoses. I'm saying that it is almost lunacy to suggest that he was going to die anyway and the knee on the neck didn't matter. And so we have Dr. Tobin. And Dr. Tobin, who knew, wrote what is considered the Bible of breathing. Yes, I'm going to say it again for those in the cheap seats. The Bible for breathing. He actually is the person that everyone goes to understand forensic pulmonology. Yeah, child, I learned some words. Forensic pulmonology. He is a forensic pulmonologist. And he said, I love learning, and I love learning about breathing. That further is indicative of the fact that even though he is considered the hierarchy of forensic pulmonology, he still has a thirst for learning and realizes he doesn't know everything, so he continues to learn. Oh, I loved it. I loved it. Because how do you refute that? Where do you go? I mean, I'm telling you, this man was in an HBCU. He was telling us to touch our neck, and I was touching mine, and he was talking about the large muscle in the neck to the left. And people found themselves touching their necks and engaged and hanging on his every word. But that wasn't it. That wasn't the part that really got it, right? Those of you that know what I'm talking about, I'm going to throw out some numbers. 9 minutes, 50 seconds. 91 pounds. 3 minutes, 5 seconds. You say, well, what does all that mean? Oh, I'm so glad you asked. We thought it was 8 minutes and 46 seconds, and we said it was 9 minutes on George Floyd's neck. Well, Dr. Tobin, in his expertise, his Bible on breathing, said it was 9 minutes and 50 seconds on George Floyd's neck. 9 minutes and 50 seconds on his neck. 9 minutes, 50 seconds. I'm on the radio, so I cannot pause for 9 minutes and 50 seconds because that's 10 minutes of blank airspace, and I cannot do that. But I wish I could. So I decided I would do it this way. 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005, 1006, 1007, 1008, 1009, 1010. That's just 10 seconds. Can you imagine somebody being on your neck for 10 seconds with their knee? And then we found out that while Dr. Tobin said that he dismissed the part of the video and did not give it a numerical calculation and status thereof when Derek Chauvin's toe of his boot was on the concrete. And I remember the young girl, the juvenile, who I believe is 10 years old now, was 9 when it happened, on May 25th, 2020. I'll never forget the date because it's my birthday. And while I was celebrating another year, he was taking his last breath. And I remember the young girl testified and said, well, she knew he was pushing his knee further into his neck, he being Derek Chauvin, into George Floyd's neck, because she saw how his toe was going down on the concrete. And so I was a little caught off guard when I heard Dr. Tobin say he did not count that. But oh my gosh, Jerry Blackwell, I can't say it enough. Shout out to the brother. Because what Dr. Tobin said later was because he didn't count it until Chauvin's toe came off of the concrete and you could see daylight between the concrete and the toe of his boot. And then he knew he was putting all of his weight on George Floyd's neck. And then he went on to further state that because that happened, you then have to equate half of his body weight and half of the weight of his equipment, which would have been 91 pounds of force on George Floyd's neck. 91 pounds. of pressure. I'm not going to count the seconds again. I'm not going to do it. I know y'all thought I was going to do it. I'm not going to do that. But you understand what I'm saying. But, Dr. Tobin was not done with the defense and certainly not done dragging Derek Chauvin for the filth that he is. Dragging him for filth, honey. Because he went on further to state that George Floyd had expired and Chauvin kept his knee on his neck for an additional 3 minutes and 5 seconds after he died. 3 minutes, 5 seconds. I'm saying all that to you to say we have so much going on in the world right now. That video that we continue to see is not necessarily called a modern day lynching. They tell you he died of asphyxia, I've heard people say strangulation. I don't know if it's I think you have to have something around somebody's neck. But of course, I'm not I'm not an authority on strangling. Although there's some people I would like to strangle. We'll talk about that in a minute. So I'm thinking to myself, this is a lynching, and what we are seeing is a modern day lynching. Many of you that continue to follow my show know that I've talked about how me and some of my friends were on our way to Prairie View. And those of you that are familiar with Prairie View, you know how you exit in Madisonville and take the back roads, the little one-stop town, one horse town rather, and then you go on into PVAMU. Well, this particular time, Twin was driving because I didn't want to drive, and they complained. If you ask my boy Jeter, he'll say, we wanted to leave early, cars wanted to leave late. Well, I was corner bending. And so we would leave later, and Twin was driving because I didn't want to drive. And we drove, took a wrong turn, and drove into an area where we could smell flesh burning. And smelling the flesh burning, it's a very distinct smell. If you've never smelled it before, you don't really know what it is, but once you know what it is, it's familiar. It smells exactly like what it is. And we saw a figure, strange fruit, hanging from a tree limb. And they had a torch. So I don't know if they had attempted to burn him and it didn't fully light, or maybe it went out. And then there were a bunch of people there, some in white hoods. Many of them were in short sleeve, button down dress shirts. I've always equated that to men of the South. And as my grandmother would say, trousers. And some were in overalls. Y'all understand what I'm saying. And they turned and they saw our headlights. And I remember one in particular said, and I quote, "It's some niggers. Get 'em." Now, he probably didn't say it that slow, but that is how I heard it. I was watching it in slow motion. I was hearing it in slow motion. And Twin was polarized with fear. And so I, from the passenger seat, took my foot, reached over his, put my foot on top of his foot, dropped the car down, because back then the gear shift was on the steering column, dropped it down in the reverse, and I think I probably backed up at 90 miles per hour. This is a true story. It's verifiable. For about 2 miles before we turned around. It was nothing but the Lord God that we didn't hit something or somebody else was driving up and was late. That happened. I saw that, smelled that, and it is forever burned in our memory. I hadn't seen my boy Jeter in a long time, and we were at an event, and I was getting a drink behind him, and he asked me, "Do you ever think about that?" And I said, "No." And what I didn't finish saying was, "I try not to." And I asked him, and he said, "I think about it every day." I'm telling you this story because what we have from George Floyd in this modern day lynching is PTSD. We have it from watching it, from witnessing it, from listening to him beg for his life, to hearing him call for his mother as he was transitioning from this life to the next. We saw the older gentleman, 61 years old, who had recently lost his mother, who was talking about, he was telling him, just go on and get in the car. Just go on and get in the car. Go on and get in the car, brother. And I remember thinking to myself, shut up. He cannot get in the car. 3 men are on him. One was on his calf, one was on his thigh, and one was on his neck. There was no getting up. And he was saying, you can't win, brother. You can't win. Sir, sometimes, let me just say this. All help ain't good help. That was not good help. Because he was suggesting that Floyd was doing something wrong when Floyd was actually laying there with his face being pushed into the pavement while his breathing was being so severely restricted that, in the words of Dr. Tobin, he had no oxygen left in his body. No oxygen left in his body. We had another doctor, an emergency room physician, who stated that at the time when they could no longer feel a pulse, there was no need for Derek Chauvin to keep his knee on his neck, and that they should have immediately rolled him over and began CPR, chest compressions. In fact, we know from the EMT that even after they arrived to administer aid to Mr. Floyd, they had to tell Chauvin, because they asked him it the first time, they had to tell him to get off of his neck so that they could take George Floyd. This is what a modern day lynching is. And the idea that he did not intend to kill him is absurd. But, he deserves a defense. I don't understand why he has not just pled. Just take a plea and do his time, because he's a murderer. He's a murderer. He's a liar. He's, this person that, what I found interesting was many of those in white America, when we first heard about this, said, well, he's not a racist because, here it is, because I am going to do another segment coming very soon on racism. You all seem to like it. I got a lot of good feedback. I don't want to consume you with what you already know. I just want to be thought provocative so that we can have a conversation. But what I thought was interesting about Derek Chauvin is that Tal, the police officer that was standing there keeping the crowd at bay, has a sister. And his sister is married to, it's her husband now, was married to Derek Chauvin. And he was fired 3 days after the police chief of the Minneapolis, Minnesota, fired Derek Chauvin 3 days after George Floyd passed away, May 28th, 2020. So what White Bread America was saying, they were saying, no, he's not a racist. This is not about race. Black people need to stop making this about race. He's not a racist because he's married to Tal's sister. Okay, now I told you it's levels of racism. I told you it comes in all shapes, sizes, and colors. You can like Polynesian people or Indian people or Native American people or Hispanic people, or Latino people, Latinx, and not like black people. You can not like black people, but really have an affinity for the Jewish community, like Michelle Lynn. If you go to my Facebook page, those of you that saw my promo saw that I was telling you this show was coming up and we were going to talk about voter suppression, and I put the most adorable picture of the cutest little boy, me and my youngest son. And Michelle Lynn, she's on Facebook, you can look her up. Michelle Lynn posted a picture, a GIF of a baby chimpanzee, suggesting two things. One, I either gave birth to a monkey because I want to talk about voter suppression, or two, my son is a monkey because I want to talk about voter suppression. And so when I looked at Michelle Lynn's profile, she had at one point last year attempted to raise money for the Jewish Holocaust Memorial Museum. But my baby looks like a monkey. Or I don't know what she meant, because she didn't have any words. And I've always been told a picture is worth 1,000 words. So my takeaway is she is suggesting that my son, who is cute, because he looks like his mama, that he's a monkey. He's 10 now. He's aware of it. And he said, she's just a racist. Let me see what she looks like. And he says, oh, she looks like her golden retriever. Never mind. Because I have taught my children to not embrace the foolishness. So I'm saying this to say, here's someone who wants people to respect Jewish people and the atrocities that were committed against them, that people should be aware of them. Yet here I am as a black mother. She suggests I look like a monkey. I'm telling you that people can really not like one group of people, one class of people, one race of people, nationality, people of certain ilks, right? You cannot like them, but like other minorities. So the idea that he's not a racist is absurd. This was a modern day lynching of a white man who intended and did kill a black man via modern day lynching. There's no way around it. So the idea that he's not a racist, well, let's do away with that. Okay, let's not say that no more. Tell your friends, tell your coworkers around the water cooler, tell them don't do that anymore. That's a lie from the pit of hell. And on this show, we sip power to pour truth. This is called the Black Tea Sip. I'm gonna take a quick break. I want y'all to watch this little video that's coming up because she says that we are mispronouncing Derek Chauvin's name. Stay with me. Go grab your cups. I'm gonna fill it up.
Cops used to come around, in my neighborhood. All right, you kids, stop having so much fun. Move along. Oh, they'd arrest me, especially at night. They have a curfew, right? Niggas have to be home by 11, Negroes 12. And you be trying to get home, doing your crew runs. And they always would catch you out in front of a store or something. Because you'd be taking shortcuts, right? Cops. Put your hands up, black boy.
I don't want to hurt nobody.
I've noticed that many people are mispronouncing this man's name. It's French. It's pronounced murderer.
All right, quick break there. So I really want people to understand what it's like for us to have to watch this. I thought it was hilarious when that lady said, we are pronouncing his name wrong. And he is, his name is murderer. Because, I don't want to paint the picture all white people are bad, all black people are good, because that's not the case. I've had some white people help me along the way in my career, and I've had some black people just really try to do me in. So that is not what I'm saying. I am on a network, Fishbowl, where the owner is a Mexican-American, Sammy, she's wonderful. Her son is my engineer, Angelo, and she allows me to be unapologetically black on this show. So I do not ever want to paint the picture that I think one group of people are better than another. I'm saying people are people, but if we take it in totality, there is a faction of white America who continues to ignore the truth and wants to excuse the behavior of white supremacy by saying either one, it's just a few bad apples, or two, to not acknowledge it at all. And I am saying that anybody with any sense, anybody who ever cared about Derek Chauvin, and maybe those people don't exist, I don't know, would have simply said, okay, you need to take a plea deal because this is horrible. I think that at some point you simply just take one for the proverbial team, right? Well, apparently he's not a team player. What I'm really interested to find out is what about the other 3 cops that are also facing charges? Because once Derek Chauvin is convicted, and I do believe he's going to be convicted, then there's nothing else to say about them other than you participated in the lynching of George Floyd. I mean, that's it in a nutshell, right? There's no way around it. It's no way to excuse that. But when we hear that there was 9 minutes and 50 seconds that his knee was on his neck, when we hear that it was 91 pounds of force, When we learned that he had expired and he remained on his neck for another 3 minutes and 5 seconds, they should have just gone in the corner and said, Judge, can we have a moment? And just, decided at that moment, no, this is not what we're going to do anymore. We're going to go ahead and face the music, right? That's kind of what should have happened. It's not what did happen, but it's certainly what should have happened. But we don't live in a world of shoulds, because if we lived in a world of shoulds, his knee should have never been on his neck. I also thought it was very interesting that the defense thought that he was going to trip up the doctor. And the emergency room doctor that came from Louisville, Kentucky, he asked him, was he a forensic pulmonologist? Because the forensic pulmonologist had just left and handed him his hat. So he said, no, I'm not. You're not trained in forensic pathology, are you? He said, well, I'm trained by forensic pathologists, and I am trained in forensic pathology for the living. Oh, okay. All right, where are we going with this? So then he says, well, and he stumbles and he fumbles. And that's when I said, sometimes you take on cases that are bigger than you can handle. And this is certainly one of those times. I'm very interested to find out what the defense comes up with when it's their turn to be first at bat. Because what Jerry Blackwell, the Assistant Attorney General for the state of Minnesota, has done flawlessly is anticipate all of the things they were going to try to pull out, including, because Dr. Tobin did this, and remember, Dr. Tobin wrote the Bible on breathing, and so it's irrefutable, whatever he says. And when he says, in my opinion, you don't even take it as an opinion, because you're like, well, you're the authority on breathing. I mean, it's like Dr. Tobin, and then only ones above him is God, the person who creates breath, right? It's like Dr. Tobin, then God. God would be the only one that could take the stand and say that Dr. Tobin didn't know what he was talking about. That's where we are now in the George Floyd trial. George Floyd murder trial, because it's Derek Chauvin's trial, George Floyd murder trial. I want to be very specific about that. And so where we are now is the fact that we're going to allow the prosecution. They're going to bring in some more witnesses. They're going to wrap up. And I may be behind y'all because I can't watch it all day like I was trying to watch it all day and I wasn't getting anything done. So correct me if I'm wrong. Somebody will. We're waiting on them to wrap up because I think they have a couple of more witnesses. But what I thought was so interesting about the emergency room doctor, who he wanted to ask and wanted to try to trip him up by saying he wasn't a forensic pulmonologist, and he talked about being trained in pathology and all these things. He said, when he was talking on the stand, he was talking about bruising on the neck. Again, Jerry Blackwell is anticipating all the things that the defense is going to. You know, when old folks used to say, just knock the wind out of your sails. If I never knew what that meant, I knew what it meant on that day, because I could see the frustration in the defense counsel's face. And I could think to myself, well, you should have never taken the case. But you thought you were going to get some comeuppance. Thought he was going to, improve his little old practice. And, you can't knock the hustle for the man trying to get his little 15 minutes of fame. I did say of shame. And Chauvin, somebody was going to defend him. I guess he was thinking, why not me? Except for the fact that you were not ready to defend a murderer who just didn't have his pointy hood on for a lynching. Because while they were constantly asking people about, the EMTs rather, about bruising on the neck, the emergency room physician who had trained people in his authority in emergency room medicine talked about how putting, like a chokehold, like what we saw around Eric Gardner. Remember, the little short man jumped up in the air and grabbed Eric Gardner around the neck and pulled him to the ground. Remember that? So he was suggesting that is a wider base around your neck, and so that does not leave bruising. But if you were to take a lanyard, as he described, and pull it, that would leave bruising because it's thinner. So when the defense stood up and said, and I loved everything about this, said that a knee was narrow, and it was more narrow than, the fold of the arm. and it would not. And so he was suggesting that a knee would have left bruising. And so he went on further to say, no, sir, the witness that's authority in emergency medicine said no, because your arm is wide, but the knee, the base of the knee is wide. And then he went to his knee and brought it up towards his neck and said, so the space would be comparable. He said, well, okay. I mean, that's verbatim. That's it. Verbatim. What is it? Well, okay. I don't know if that's a legal technical term. I never heard of it, but that was what he said. And I remember thinking to myself, you weren't prepared. You really weren't prepared for the truth. Because he prepared his defense based on a lie. He wasn't prepared to defend, as this woman called him, last name murderer, for the truth. Because that's where we are. We're at the truth of the matter now. There's no excuse for killing him. I'm really anticipating. I mean, I'm going to be perched with popcorn because I want to see how the defense is going to try to excuse the murder of George Floyd when he lay dead with Chauvin's knee on his neck for an additional 3 minutes and 5 seconds. That's like in the movies. You know how like they'll shoot him. They shoot him up, bang, bang, bang. And then somebody comes behind him while the person is laying there dead and shoots him 2 more times. He can't get any deader. So what is the purpose except for the fact that that's intent? Now, in the state of Minnesota, and many of you already know this, in the state of Minnesota, you have he can have third-degree murder, second-degree murder, and manslaughter. In the state of Minnesota, he can be convicted of all of those, none of those, one or two of those. I don't see how he doesn't get convicted. I don't see how it is excusable on all 3 charges. In fact, Dr. Tobin, the man who wrote the Bible on breathing, he was so effective that the defense counsel jumped up and said he objected to him demonstrating on his neck and asking the jurors to touch their own necks so that they could understand what was happening to Mr. Floyd. That is how effective Dr. Tobin is, because they will tell you in any trial law class, especially if you do trial competitions, they will tell you that sometimes it will seem so damning in trial, but you don't want to object because the objection notifies the jury that you are afraid of what's happening in that moment. You're afraid of the testimony. You're afraid of what's being said, how it may be interpreted. He jumped up and asked for a ruling suggesting that the man should not be able to ask the jury to touch their neck. Certainly can't tell him not to touch his own neck. You understand? It's demonstrative. It demonstrates what's happening. And so the judge sustained it by saying, and I love this, you may touch your neck if you wish. You are not required to do so. But should you have an interest in touching your neck to understand what the doctor is saying, you may in fact do so. So really it was sustaining the objection, saying that yes, I agree, but not for real. Like it was kind of like, okay, I'm going to sustain your objection, psych. That's basically what the judge did. The defense counsel doesn't know, in the words of my mother, the great philosopher, he doesn't know if he should poop or go blind. I got to pay some bills. This is Corey with the Black Tea Sip. We'll be right back. Let's talk about voter suppression in Georgia and all the things that are going on in the state of the Black Union. Go grab your cups, baby. I'm going to fill it up. Oh, let me say this. I want to pay respect to the great DMX. Kathy just texted me. Thank you, Kathy Craig. She just texted me. He passed away. And Yahoo News, I'm sure TMZ is about to say something. Rest in peace, brother. You fought a good, hard fight. I know he struggled with addiction. Now he can take his rest. DMX, Hugs and kisses, peace and love.
Standard Time.
We'll be talking about
relationship,
health,
finances,
and a lot more. So be sure to log on Monday 2 to 4 Central Standard Time on
Fishbowl Radio Network.
Jump in.
Podcasters, the name of the game is to get more visibility for your podcast so you can gain more credibility with your audience, thus more profitability. If you're ready to start syndicating your podcast and massively grow your audience and influence, then contact Fishbowl Radio Network today at 817-633-4880. Fishbowl Radio Network is one of the largest streaming platforms in the world, and now your podcast can be heard all over the world by the listening audience that Fishbowl Radio Network has amassed over the last 11 years. With over 6 million impressions a month and growing, this is a platform that all podcasters should be on to create greater visibility for their podcast. Jump in today and be a part of the Fishbowl family, streaming great live internet radio shows and podcasts 24/7. 817-633-4880. Jump in.
Hello, I'm Bill. I've been in the financial industry for over 30 years. Now I share my passion for helping others become more financially educated. Why are so many people interested in what I share? Because like others, I've discovered who the financially free are and who they are not. But most importantly, I've determined how ordinary people can become financially free. If you're struggling with living paycheck to paycheck, drowning in debt while struggling to save for retirement, then I can get you the support you need. By joining the Mustard Seed Financial Literacy Series membership, you will get access to my financial courses. Hey, don't worry, I'm not going to teach you how to become a financial consultant, but I am going to show you how to get out of debt, how to raise your credit score, and how to put savings away for retirement. My courses are simple and easy to follow at your own pace. So join today at abetterwaytogrow.org. That's abetterwaytogrow.org. I'm going to show you a better way to grow.
Hello, we are It's About the Kids Incorporated. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization that operates out of Dallas, Texas.
Our mission is to focus on the kids of today who will become the youth of tomorrow and the adult of the future. Today, tomorrow, the future.
Empowering the community one family at a time.
You can reach us at all social media platforms at It's About the Kids or online at www.itsaboutthekids.org.
Where we mentor a child, save a life.
Hi, this is Diane Marion Eunice, and I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. For the past 9 years, I have worked with over 300 couples in the areas of sexual health, communication, and conflict resolution. If you are interested in rebuilding connection and intimacy with your partner, please contact me today. I can be reached at 682-201-8175, or you can email me at diane@letstalkrelationships.org, or visit my website at www.letstalkrelationships.org. And remember, you can't heal if you refuse to deal.
If you're worried your friend may be struggling, remember, you don't have to be there to be there.
You can say, how are you, or get a fake tattoo. You can ask with an app if it works for you. You could chat on the game, kick off your flip-flops. You can ask on your couch while you binge watch.
Whatever gets you talking.
Reach out to a friend about their mental health. Learn how you can help at seizetheawkward.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council, American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, and the Jed Foundation.
Hey, this is Stevie B with the Am I Worth the Time show, host of the year 2020. Want to encourage you to keep it locked right here at Fishbowl Radio Network. Y'all be safe, you hear?
I'm not saying I'm going to rule the world or I'm going to change the world, but I guarantee that I will spark the brain that will change the world. And that's our job.
Tell me why. Why can't we live together? Tell me why. Why can't we live together? Everybody wants to live together. Why can't we live together?
Hello, all you melanated beauties. Sun-kissed by God's lips. This is Coy with your black tea sip. I'm sipping power to pour you the truth. Go grab your cup. Let's fill it up.
All right, and we're back. If you're just joining us, we were really kind of dealing with the fact that we've lost another one, another great. I don't know what we're going to do. I think we're going to have to bubble wrap our people. DMX has gone on home. He's transitioned, and so we just want to say rest in peace, brother, and our sincere condolences to the family. I want to talk about voter suppression. Angela and I were talking during the break, and we were talking about DMX, and he said, I think that's as close as we've gotten to Pac. And I said, well, we've got something to try. J. Cole and Kendrick Lamar. And he was like, are you serious? And some others. I mean, Jay-Z came out and told us, what's hotter than making it rain the strip club, owning your own stuff. So, there are remnants of him around. I think by now Pac would have been running for office. Child, I'd have been sending a whole lot of money to that campaign. But where we are now is we need people to speak up, be unapologetic and fearless, like Pac. So in the state of Georgia, where everybody likes to talk about Atlanta, they don't really talk about all them little podunk towns and stuff. I mean, and it's a bunch of one-horse towns there still, where people are really looking at losing their grip on white supremacy in the state of Georgia. But really, it's in all 50 states. We don't want to just be mean to Georgia. We want to talk about them all, be mean to them all. And so what has happened is they've started with the state of Georgia. Governor Hot Wheels here in Texas, he doesn't know what to do. He don't know to roll away or lay down. He doesn't know what to do. And so now he is suggesting ridiculous things that we'll get to. And if you want to know what he's doing and how he is in solidarity with the governor of Atlanta, share this. Give me a like. Don't just like it give me a real reaction. Give me a real comment. Let me know that you're there. If you're on YouTube, tell me something good. Leave a real comment so that we know you're there. Y'all will hit me and say, great show, but then y'all won't like the show. Y'all will give me them little emojis. You know how they fly up. Give me some reactions, some comments, and some shares, and show me some love so that I know you're out there. What we have now in the state of Georgia is a tug of war. So Governor Kemp, we talked about it 2 weeks ago, signed legislation. Remember the state representative, the black woman that was knocking on the door, and they had her arrested for knocking on the door, disturbing the peace, disorderly conduct, and I'm sure they trumped up some other things by now. But what that legislation said, what I love about when racists do things that harm the many, because, really and truly, they treat their own people like collateral damage. It's not just we're going to do these to black people or Mexican people or people of color, right? Did y'all know that they had this thing called BIPOC? I was like, what is this, BIPOC? What is this BIPOC? It's Black Indigenous People of Color. As an aside to voter suppression, I just want to say these labels and these terms, they're getting on my last black nerve. Because who is not indigenous? I mean, are they suggesting that black people in America are not indigenous because you have black Native Americans? Okay, so are they saying they're not indigenous? Okay, but they went to Africa and they robbed, pillaged, looted, and raped that continent. So those people are indigenous to that place. The Aborigines, they are indigenous to that place. Vietnam, Saigon, when they bombed and killed all those people were indigenous to that place. Who is not indigenous? And why are we separating black from indigenous? If you prescribe to the theory that all life came from Africa, I just want to throw that out there. That's just something for y'all think about. Y'all do what y'all want to with it. But I am curious to know who is not indigenous. I know one answer, but I've digressed. So now we have Governor Kemp, who has decided that he's going to extend time frame to vote, but he's going to limit ballot boxes where you could drop it off with your absentee ballot. He's going to shorten the hours. But most importantly, and I'm telling you, this is why the Major League Baseball pulled out of Atlanta. They pulled out because he said you cannot give food or water to someone standing in line. Hello, Jim Crow. So joining us by phone is my dear friend, childhood friend. Her name is Crystal. I don't know if she wants me to give her whole name. Crystal James. You know how when you know somebody a long time, you call them by their whole name. Her grandfather was the first black mayor of the city of Arlington. She was the campaign manager for the sitting mayor of Arlington, if I'm not mistaken. She also was a strategist for Deborah Peoples' campaign when she was running and almost won from the mayor of Fort Worth. And, that's a huge feat in and of itself because, Fort Worth is not just cow tippers, what we used to call agriculture, but there are still some black folk that walk down the street, and when someone Caucasian walks by, they look down at the ground because they don't want no trouble. That is still very much a part of Fort Worth. So the fact that Deborah Peoples almost beat Betsy, who is now the sitting mayor, shows the kind of work that Crystal does. She's calling us from the great city of New Orleans, Louisiana. Hey, Crystal. Crystal, are you there?
Well, I want to say one positive.
Wait a minute. We just got you on the line. So say hi to the people first.
Hello there. How's everybody doing today with the black tea sip?
Yes, the melanation is here. So you wanted to say, so I think you were talking before we got you on. So you wanted to comment.
Interesting.
I wanted to have you comment because we are talking about Georgia and we're talking about voter suppression. And I believe that the reason Major League Baseball said, oh, wait just a minute. Because really and truly, if you think about it, it's not like basketball. It's not like football. It doesn't have a huge black, African-American in particular, population, working population. So the idea that the MLB would say, hold up, wait. The idea, they never saw that coming. But I believe it's that one caveat in the bill that said no food or water to anyone in line. It was basically pointing us to the colored people's water fountain.
Absolutely. The idea that the whole Great Commission, what are you supposed to do? If someone's hungry, you give them what? If someone's thirsty, you give them water. And so the whole idea that should voter lines get long, which is a good thing, right? Should voter lines get long, we are going to say that your penalty for exercising your civil right is that you can't leave the line, nor can you drink or eat, and no one can bring it to you. Do they do this when people are standing in line to buy Nike tennis shoes around the corner? Do they do this when people are standing in line for concert tickets or to get into venues? Absolutely not. Only when exercising the right to vote. And I do want to say that we are a special people, though, Coy.
No, let me tell you how special we are. So my Sunshine mother lives in your city, and she stood, baby, let me tell you something about old black folk. And I'm saying folk, F-O-K-E. F-O-K-E, not folk with an L.
Black folk.
Black folk.
Okay.
They shall not be moved. She stood in
like
line
a tree
to vote for Biden-Harris. And she was really voting for, look, Biden was the gravy, but Harris was the whole meal. She stood there and voted for her because, and I'm saying her as in Kamala Harris, for 8 hours, never left the line. So they create these long lines. They manipulate by removing certain voting machines. And
that's right.
They create these situations where because there was only one place for them to vote, where his mother could vote. One place, not two, not three, one place. So she stood for 8 hours, and you know what? She was not alone. That is the part that they forget, our perseverance. But now, so what they say is, okay, the colored folks are not going to be moved. They're, and she is of the Martin Luther King era. Like, she understands poll tax and all the things that they used to do, having us take a literacy test.
She's about this life.
So
she's about this life.
She's about that life. She's not going to leave. My mother, the same thing. So those who have fought and been in the trenches, they are not going to be moved. So you know what they said? Well, we just going to restrict you where you can't have food and water. That is the legislation. A person actually wrote that down, put it in a bill, and the governor signed it. That is what's mind-boggling, Crystal, that he actually signed it.
Not only signed it, invited people to watch him sign it like this was something good for the culture.
And not only did he ask them to come and witness it, It was all white men, but they did it with plantation style.
That's right.
It was laid out plantation
Well,
style.
with the picture of a plantation behind him, right? Did you see that about the artwork?
That's exactly right. Plantation style. Absolutely.
Now, listen,
right.
we are a special people in that, hey, we caused all of this legislation. That's what I want black folk to get from this, is because we showed up and made a difference, they are scared. So please, if you never thought your vote mattered, if you didn't think that people are scared of our power, if you ever doubted that we have power, we have spawned legislation because of our wokeness, okay? So all that says to me is we need to keep coming.
We need to double down. Double down. We need,
double down.
So here's the thing that I want to say for the black folks who say, oh, your vote doesn't matter. Baby, they wouldn't work this hard if your vote did not count. I was very concerned when my pediatrician, like I'm a child, my children's pediatrician was like, Coy, what are we going to do about these voting machines? Because there's a calculation in calculus, and that's in some guy, I didn't recognize the man's name. He said that he was, that the voting machines, and they're not accurate, and they may not be. You know, to be quite honest, you may have some glitches and things. I will say, because nothing is 100% reliable. But the takeaway for my 13-year-old, and Crystal, you'll appreciate this, is we got in the car, and my son said, is he a Trump supporter? Because my son said, if you are that concerned, when we are trying to get away from Trump, are worried about the vote, but the idea is, yes, we do need to be concerned about the accuracy of our vote, but there is this Republican mindset that is seeming to permeate throughout the nation that the only way that the voting machines work is if you vote for Trump. That if that's not cultish, if it's not cultish, I don't know what is. So now they are so afraid. The Republicans are such in fear, and let me tell you who they're in fear of: DeKalb County, Atlanta, Georgia. They're in fear of Detroit, Michigan. They're in fear of Dallas County and Harris County. Dallas County, where 52% of the vote comes from black folk, F-O-K-E. They are afraid of those areas. So who's going to stand in line, just like you said? Us. But what do? You know, you say, well, I'm still up here. You call your grandmother. You call your mother. You say, you're still standing in line? Say, yeah, okay, let me go back here and get you something to eat. So this is what I foresee in the state of Georgia. Somebody's grandmama's going to be trying to vote. Now, we do know, let me say this, there have been several civil rights organizations that are challenging that in the court as we speak. So it is not done deal records, right? But I foresee someone trying to take their grandmama, you know, because a lot of black people have diabetes. They can't go without food and water, right? They need to eat. And so now you're saying, okay, you brought them food, so we're going to arrest both of you, one for bringing it and one for taking the food. And heaven forbid if you consume it. And it'll be just like the woman that did not know that she couldn't vote, voted by provisional ballot, and is now in the penitentiary. And her name is Crystal. What is her last? Because it was Tarrant County's district attorney that did that. And Coy, you're right. But that person, let it be Coy Berry. And it's going to be the Berry versus the blank district attorney or the state of Texas. Well, it'll be a county because counties administer elections. Wait a minute, hold on. It'll be. Don't put me in it. Let's use somebody else's name. It'll be Crystal James versus Tarrant County versus the county of Tarrant. And it's going to go all the way to the Supreme Court because if I want to bring my grandmother something so that her blood sugar can stay up, so that she can cast her vote, I promise you I'll do that. And I'll be I don't mind being, the precedent-setting case. I'll be the Rosa Parks of the giving water in line. Because I did want to say this, too, about the statistics. I think we ought to work very diligently. We have Asora there, Inga. We need to work very diligently, set up water stations. Because he didn't say you could not drink or eat in line. He said you cannot bring. So as they walk up, there should be stations set up where you just get you a little paper sack bag, brown paper sack bag, snack, you know what you used to call sack lunch, and some water. And we got you. Because they didn't say you couldn't consume it. They said you cannot bring it. So which also says, Coy,
let's talk about that for a second, that they're not the brightest bulbs, these legislators, because they didn't say, they just said water. Aren't there many other liquids that you could bring? I mean, I just think of so many loopholes in this thing because I'm smart.
Because you're smart.
That I need to understand it's so obvious that the goal is just to limit people voting. I want to say something about the statistical piece, though. The way we combat statistical errors is more people voting.
More people voting.
That's how you do that. So again, there were statistical errors, and we still put 2 Democratic senators in office in the state of Georgia. Statistical errors and all.
Right.
That's why they're mad.
That's why they're mad.
Because they love rigging an election, but they only want to rig it for them. And that's where we are.
And to your point, when Trump was so frustrated, and I really don't like to call his name, but the orangutan that used to run the Oval Office like a 3-ring circus, he was so frustrated, he literally called out and said, y'all get to Detroit because they have to be doing something with the votes, because they never count on us showing up and showing out. They never count on us actually being very present. And I want to add this. Right now you have Stacey Abrams, who is my shero. I love Stacey Abrams.
Me too.
When they stole the election from her, and I do believe it was stolen, when they stole the election from her, she said, oh, okay, you're going to steal the election from me? I'm going to steal the whole state from you and flip Georgia blue. They never saw that coming. But she and Tyler Perry are kind of singing the same song right now, and they're saying, with the MLB pulling out, they are hurting people that look like us financially and hurting Atlanta in particular economically. But, and yes, I'm not going to argue that point. What I am going to say is that sometimes we have to sacrifice. Remember the Selma bus boycott? It wasn't just in Selma. There was a bus boycott right here in Dallas. You know, so we have to think of it in global terms. So what we should be doing, Tyler Perry, with all your money and influence, you can save Meghan Markle, save your people in Atlanta.
Oh, did you touch it? Ouch. Wait, what'd you say? I need you to repeat it.
I just feel like if you can save Meghan Markle and her beige baby, then you can save, and Harry the redheaded stepchild on the cool, then you can save your people. You have enough money and influence.
Let's go one step further. With all of our caping, well, no, I'm not. I'm going to stay on this topic. Coy, because you just touched me a little bit, because I saw a little bit of the news moving today from the Derek Chauvin trial coverage to the coverage of the death of 99-year-old Prince Philip, as if it was breaking news, as if we needed to watch people crying in Britain over watching this trial, and it got me a little concerned. They did go back to the trial, but I need us to stay focused. And so, like you said, why are we doing everything else? Let's keep our mind on the main thing. Let's keep our mind on the main thing.
Because here's what I want to say about that, and I'm glad you brought it up, because I had planned to.
I'm sorry, it's off topic, though. I apologize.
I'm glad you brought it up, because Prince William, the Duke of Edinburgh, now they've been propping him up and playing like he was alive since 2013. I think
he's been dead.
Me too. I think they just been propping him up the same way they did Dick Cheney. Now he didn't even have a
and Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan had been dead. They trotted that man out for that election that he helped win. When he, I'm sorry, he was in a freezer somewhere, and I'll say it.
And they did the same thing with the Duke of Edinburgh. I swear they had a ventriloquist somewhere behind him making his arm. It took him 45 minutes to raise his arm up. God bless the dead, but it took him 45 minutes to wave his hand, because that man was through. He was done. Stick a fork. Now they are saying that he has passed on. He has expired and gone on to wherever those people go. I'm not sure. You go
to take the press off of what? The racism. So they needed a death. They did need a death.
But here's the thing, because I'm not sure if he went to the smoking or non-smoking section. So I'm just gonna say he transitioned. I don't know if he got his wings. That's beyond the brevity and scope of my role. I will say this about the Duke of Edinburgh and the Queen Elizabeth's husband, who died at 99. 99 is a full life. Let us pay attention to that.
A blessed full life.
But I want to emphasize the fact that this is the same man, and I found it insulting to interrupt the trial for breaking news for him, because this is the same man, when visiting Australia, asked the Aborigines people if they still, listen to me, still threw spears at one another. So he called these people
Coy, why do you bring these things up? I forgot about that.
But see, that's what we do on this. We are unapologetically black, and we sip power to pour what? Nothing but the truth, what Jesus loves. So you have this man who asked the Aborigines people who are, remember I talked about BIPOC, indigenous to Australia before the Europeans showed up to colonize that country. He asked these people if they.
So for y'all, wait, Corey, let me help you out. For the people in the cheap seats on your show, y'all, that's black. That's the dark people. That's the Negroes of Australia. Okay, that's the Negroes of Australia. Go ahead.
Not just the Negroes. Those are the Negroes with blonde hair and blue eyes. Stop telling black women that they're trying to be European because they'll put in contacts or wear blonde hair, because we are the originators of blonde hair and blue eyes. But I've digressed. He asked them to, if they still threw spears at one another. Now, first of all, they only throwing spears at the enemy. They should have thrown one at him. Why would they throw it at each other? So that is to suggest black on black crime before somebody gave it a tagline. It is insulting on its face. He is suggesting, he's calling them spear chunkers. He's calling them beast. To their face. This is the same man. The same man who told Chinese students while he was visiting China that they can't stay there too long because their eyes will get too slinty. This is the same man. Yes, ma'am. Google it. It's Googleable. This is the same man. And we are supposed to feel something. I mean,
yes, you want to take away from my coverage of the trial to mourn him. We can do that later.
I mean, we're not European. This is not a territory.
We're not one of the territories of the British Empire.
That's right. We're not territory of the crown. So I don't understand it, but I don't want this moment to pass without talking about the fact that he's a racist. And I did say that I thought that perhaps Harry was talking to his father, Prince Charles, when they were talking about the darkness of the baby. But it wasn't until today when they talked about him dying, and black people on social media, I was like, this man is a racist. And then it started just really coming to me, all the things that had been said or reported, because of course no one said it directly to me, but these things have been reported. And I was like, this man is a racist. And then it just fell on me like a ton of bricks. It was him.
Coy, you need to let all of that go because they're fixing it. They are hiring a racial equity coordinator or a diversity, equity, and inclusion person for the crown. So all of this is nil. They're not racist anymore. I didn't know
Except for the fact that they went to a country and allowed themselves to be hoisted up by black people and carried around like Cleopatra when Liz Taylor wanted to play the queen. It was that kind of
There is that.
You know,
but
and
no,
they were hiring
it's all
going to
go away as soon as they have the coordinator that's going to coordinate the diversity, the inclusion, and the equity.
Well, one would think. One would think. And they said, oh, well, that's their custom. That's what they do. You tell them no, and we need to be sensitive and explain to them why. I mean, what's wrong with that part? Because, no, you wanted to be hoisted up. You like the idea of being carried on the shoulders of black people because you've always been carried on the shoulders and the backs of black people. So
not just physically, as you know, economically, spiritually, every way you've been carried by black people.
In knowledge and in truth, every way. So the idea that he should be interrupted, and it really all folds into this idea of voter suppression. I want to share with everybody that's listening. I want you to go on my Black Tea Sip page, Facebook page, and I want you to scroll down to my promo when I said, hey, we're going to be talking about voter suppression. I posted a real cute picture of me and my youngest child, and people commented, and many of the people commented on the fact that that people should have voter ID. They should have ID to vote. Let me rephrase. They should have ID to vote. And they went on pontificating, because I responded. Like, you know me. I'm here for it. And I had time.
Go look,
I had time. And so they wanted to explain to me that voter suppression is not because you require someone to have an ID. And I said that is a very small faction of what voter suppression is. And they want to rest there because people who want to believe that people of color, black people in particular, African Americans, emphasizing that, are just simply making up. They want to believe it because the evidence is there that this is truthful. They choose and they make a cognitive decision that they are not going to believe it. So it's a choice. And they want to tell me about ID.
But when they make the choice, when they make the choice to not believe the facts, and then opine based on their alternative set of facts that are the antithesis of truth, they are not entitled to it. They're not entitled to an opinion.
Well,
because it's not based on the same set of facts.
And here's the killer. This is my little brother say, here's the real kick in the pants. Here's what got me. After you explain this is not about ID, because I live in the state of Texas. When we were talking about suing and taking it all the way to the Supreme Court if we had to, because you won't let me give grandmama some orange juice because her blood sugar's getting low, our friend and sorority sister Jane Hamilton has sued Governor Hot Wheels 3 times. They had to roll him away with a defeat because in the state of Texas, you don't have to have an ID. So here's another demonstration of how you don't know what you're talking about, and you need to be careful about typing when you don't know who you're typing to. You know, it's not about ID, because in the great state of Texas, and I'm using that term only because there are people like Jane Hamilton and you and others that have fought so diligently. In the great state of Texas, you can vote with your college ID. Because when Governor Hot Wheels decided that you could vote with a gun or gun license, what is it called, license to carry, or hunting or fishing license, but not a college ID, she sued him. She's also the reason that you can vote anywhere in your county. So if you work in Richardson, but you live in Dallas, you can leave work and go to a voting station in Richardson before you go home to Dallas, and you can vote because you can vote anywhere in your county now. That's because of Jane Hamilton. So understanding voter suppression is not about IDs, but there are certain people within white America who are so dumb. Yes, because I had to tell a woman, this woman, I want y'all to go in there and read it. I really do want y'all to read it. Because all I said was, we're going to be talking about voter suppression. But here they come. And this one woman who seemingly is Polynesian, but I don't know. I don't know what her ethnicity is or her race. But her last name is Fuji, F-U-J-I. She wanted to tell me that an ID is not racist. I said, ma'am, I didn't say anything about ID. I said voter suppression, it goes far beyond ID, and I'm paraphrasing. She came back and said something else. I said, this is demonstrative of the fact that you cannot read effectively and understand what you're reading. Because, and I just felt like I needed to respond. Sometimes I don't give it life, but ma'am, stay off my page with the foolishness. And so I told her, and she came back, and I just said, you don't know what you're reading. She came back and said, y'all can find it. It's there, okay? She said,
boy, I'm looking for it, and I am
F-U-J-I. I don't know what her first name is.
Your son?
She said that I was saying that black people were too dumb to understand, and that I was a racist and a Marxist. And I said, no, ma'am. I'm saying you, and I capitalized you each time, are too dumb, because she only had one O and I had two. And so too dumb to understand. And I am black, you idiot. I did say that. That's not nice. But I just feel like you call a spade a spade. And I said, you idiot. And you are too dumb because you don't even understand what's being said to you. And you've decided that I, as a black woman, have attacked black people when I got me and my cute little black baby from 10 years ago. This is the mentality of the people who support voter suppression. She is, and I mean this, she is completely, comprehensively indicative of the people who accidentally support people and go against their own self-interest.
That's right. Now, on your post, just parenthetically, you have, it's on, I'm looking at the one with you and your son and the voter suppression message, but there's only 2 comments, so I got to look further for it.
You got to go and tell them, you got to go and say all comments. See, Facebook hides it. And you have to tell it all comments. Because then you see the lady with the chimpanzee, because I thought she had taken it off, but she didn't. Her name is Michelle Lynn. Let me not forget that.
I heard that, but I just heard it this morning. You know, here's the thing about you and I have not talked on the radio about keyboard bullies. We really haven't.
No, we have not.
But they have a lot of nerve, and like you and I have said, we are of a rare breed where the things that we type are well aligned with the things that we say, which are also well aligned with what we will do. And people will try you when they've not seen evidence of that. So,
my mother says it best, Crystal. My mother says when they only talk about it and they're never about it. Those I got some cousins like that. They'll talk it, but they won't walk it. Now, if I say that I mean it, I'm not just on Facebook. Like, I'll tell you in your face in real life, like person to person, I will still say the same things. I will have said that, meant that, represent that. And so the idea that these people, and it wasn't but a few of them out of 500 and some people that liked the post, almost 600 people, I only had 4 or 5 or 6 people that had something to say. So I mean, that's less than 1%, right? So why even give it any credence? But I do think
it's so ignorant, and it's so ignorant, and it is very indicative of where we are in this country as a result of the presidency of Donald Trump, that she even feels bold enough to put a chimpanzee in the comments because she knows you can't find her. That's the reality.
I did turn it over to Black Twitter. Now, she didn't have any job information, employment information, because, Sean was like looking. But she did. I did turn it over to Black Twitter. If you're on Twitter, go to Black T Sip. Y'all can find it for yourselves. I took screenshots because I wanted to live. Because the truth about Black Twitter is it could be 2 years from now and somebody just happened upon it and read her for filth. So I put it out there. I put it out there because I felt like people should know. Because this is only a semblance of what people go through when they are fighting voter suppression. It's a semblance of what people go through when they stand up for what's right. Because people seem to think that it is perfectly all right to attack someone, to mock someone, to make fun of someone because the former orangutan that was running the 3-ring circus told them that is how you operate. So now you have people who are ignorant, not well read, have poor comprehension skills, out here trying to talk about things that they don't experience, that's outside their bubble and far beyond their experiences, and simultaneously disavowing the people who say that has been my experience. I remember being on Channel 11, which is the Fox News local news station here, for a panel discussion on the Confederate monuments because I served on the mayor's task force to bring them down, right? And so Bill Murchison, see, I was told to say Murchison, but this is my married name, it's my ex-husband's name. I mean, they can have it back. So you can pronounce it any way you want to. Don't make me know, never mind. And so he said, he's telling me, first he told me I was mispronouncing the name, and I told him what I just told you. I think that's important. But secondly, he told me I was talking about my grandparents' experiences, and I said, no, I'm not. Contraire. I'm talking about my experience and my grandmother's experience and my mother's experience and my brother's experience.
Which, by the way, again, being ignorant, all of those experiences
all my experience. I embody them all, and I carry them with me because George Floyd's death has given me and my children a certain amount of PTSD. I have talked to numerous black men who say that it has given them a certain amount of PTSD. I cannot tell you how many black men I know that say when a police officer gets behind them, they get a little nervous because we've seen it go south so many times. So we are all living with a certain faction of PTSD and men, women, children. So to suggest that it's not my experience is also ignorant. But the point he was trying to make is we've moved beyond that. We've moved beyond voter suppression because white people that are older and decide to disavow us and our claims, and not just white people. Let me not be unkind. Lots of people. The Hispanic community, especially in Florida, 40% of the vote went to Donald Trump. And he was suppressing the vote. We start talking about the fact that Asian people, and do not allow me to not come back to the fact about the bamboo ceiling, right? We have Asian people where you have on Facebook, and I'm going to post it, some young boys filmed it where an Asian man who is the landlord called the police on them and told 911 they had a gun in Canada. The police show up looking for the gun. Black boys still, young black boys, these are teenagers, still in the car. You can hear him say, sir, why are you telling these people we have a gun? You know we don't have a gun. There's no gun. Nobody pointing a gun at you. We don't have a gun in the car. The police officer, white man, was incensed. So, again, all white people not bad, all black people not good. They was incensed. And, I mean, he was yelling at the man, and the man was stammering and stuttering because that is a part of racism. This idea that you can not be racist because you are considered a person of color or you are considered in the minority is absurd. And those are the people that vote against us when we try to include them in the struggle and the fight and our rights. They are the ones that vote against us.
That's right.
And so we're talking about the idea of voter suppression and limiting it to just certain little caveats. Because, see, here's what older white people who really want to disavow what we're saying, they're thinking about in terms of poll tax, where you used to have to pay, where my granddaddy would come home and tell my grandmother, the great B.B. Lipscomb, shout out to the Lipscombs out there, he would come out, he would tell me, I got $2.20. It would take him all year to save $2.20, $1.10 for him and $1.10 for my grandmother, so they could vote. They had to pay a poll tax. Now, black folks had to pay it. White people did not have to pay it. In the same vein, when they
NAACP that used to raise money to cover people's poll taxes. To cover
people's vote, just like a literacy test. See, that's what he's thinking about when he says voter suppression, when you used to have to pass the test. And my grandfather, being the brilliant man that he was, he would remember the answers, take it back, and then they would write down all of the answers. And that is how people pass the test that may not have been able to pass it. They passed it because my granddaddy and others memorized the test, memorized the answers, and gave it to them. But they got rid of the literacy test because white people were failing it too. Hello,
how about that?
Come on, STAR test. STAR test. It wasn't a problem till you saw our counterparts were failing it. That's right. That's when they all decided that they had ADHD and got on Adderall so that they could have a longer time taking the SAT, the GMAT, the LSAT, and the STAR test. I'm here to pour the truth. That's what this is about. So they will disavow us. Tell us that that's what your grandmothers and your grandfathers, your forefathers' problem, not your problem, and certainly not your descendants. Because why? Because Barack Obama was president. That is what they will tell us. And so they tell you that you don't have a right to feel some kind of way when we start talking about in this particular county, it is estimated that 122,000 people are going to vote. And throughout the county, you will have maybe 200 voting machines. That is voter suppression. That is what we're talking about.
Yeah, but no one has a problem with having an ID to vote. That's the simplest of discussions. Let's move to what they're really doing, making it impossible. But what they don't understand, Coy, is it only adds to the testimony. They don't realize that we're walking around waiting to have to be able to tell a story. Remember the APCU? When I was in school, I had to stand in line 3.5 days to get validated to take classes, had to go 3 different places, borrow. We know a struggle story, and we live for them. You cannot deter us. It'll just add to the story. So keep doing it, because I promise you, like you said, our parents, us, and these millennials too. They're about it. The millennials are about that life. We're about that life. And so, it just adds, it makes for the better Netflix movie. The more you do this, we're just going to keep coming, because here's what they've done with these millennials. I don't know that and let me go beyond millennials. I'm really talking about, I think they call them X and Z or whatever they are. They're
alphabet people now.
Yeah, the younger people, younger than the millennials. I don't know that some of them really weren't concerned about voting because they didn't see a lot of change. They didn't see where it impacted their life. In these last few years, thanks to Trump, and they see now what not voting does, they see now what the reaction is to vote. And you know what young people are? The second your parents tell you can't do something, what's the one thing you want to do? That's right. Whatever it is they told you can't do. So thank you to Black Vote Matters. The bus was in Dallas and Fort Worth a few weeks ago.
Yes,
and that's a young movement. And it's all because you told us we can't vote. We must need.
You know what they told us? They told us we didn't matter. They told us we were 3/5 of a person. They told us that Jim Crow, although he never died, they had him hooked up to a ventilator, but Jim Crow never died. I don't even think he was in a coma. Somebody else was just breathing for him, and then Trump breathed new life into him. So they keep calling it the new Jim Crow. It's not new. I mean, you act like this is his grandson. He's still alive and kicking, like the Duke of Edinburgh. He's just still here. Somebody propping him up. So this
Or
idea.
JC, like you said, it was Jim Crow. His son's name was JC. He might be dead too. And now we got James Crow III. Okay?
I don't think it's the third. I think he never left. He never left. He was just on a ventilator. I mean, now he might have some offspring, clearly, but he is still dictating with his pointy hood. And I just think at this point, what we need to stop doing is being silent. Shout out to Black Twitter, who really, really does carry the torch. But I also think that we need to stop this BIPOC thing. We need to stop trying to put Black, indigenous people of color. I didn't even know it existed till this week.
Okay, Coy, I got to tell you real quick. This is what I thought it meant, and that's why I told somebody don't call me that. Not because I don't respect it, but I thought it meant bisexual people of color. And I was like, now, wait a minute. I know I'm not bisexual. What is going on here with this title?
See, they don't need to have labels.
Too many
people like
labels.
you can't. See, you're another one of those people. You stay away from all labels. Don't. You see an acronym, just run away because you're not.
Yes.
It means
Because you
black.
remember you and me and CompTIA.
It means black. Yeah, right. Black, indigenous people of color. And what I have a problem with. We had the 6 Asian women that were killed by the white man. And the Asian community said, oh, this is hate.
Because when we go there, we're going to have to go there, but go ahead.
Well, you know, they said this is hate. I don't know. What I will leave you with is the fact that in one breath, they saying, oh, the black community ought to understand. And in the next breath, they're saying the media is talking about this man killing these Asian women, and here we are, they're talking about black people. You know, which one is it? Because they have committed huge atrocities against black people. Now you want us to be in a struggle with you. And I say this with all sincerity. Good luck with your struggle. Because, I don't have a dog in that fight. And I want black people to stop talking like that. I don't have a dog in that fight. And really, we need to evaluate and take stock of how many species of dogs are actually in the fight with us. We need to stop trying to make this be some melting pot of struggle, because their struggle is not my struggle. This idea about the bamboo ceiling that recently came up, I didn't even know that was a thing. They are suggesting that they can get the job, but they don't get promoted.
I need you to pause. Please tell me that they are not saying bamboo ceiling in reference to the glass ceiling that holds other people down. Please tell me that's not the case.
That's exactly what they're suggesting, and they're saying that they get the jobs, but they never get promoted. And I'm saying we don't even get a job.
They're mocking themselves. They're mocking themselves.
They're mocking themselves, but that is what it's called. And then they said, a lady on Channel 11, Gayle King, if you're outside of the Dallas area, Gayle King's morning show, she said people tell her, "Oh, you speak so well." Well, then why are you part of this community of people that looks down on black people? Because I've been told that, and I'm sure you have as well.
Oh, you're so articulate, Coy. You're so articulate.
Yes. I've had someone ask me where I was from because I speak so well. Those are the things that are insulting and hurtful.
The microaggressions that we deal with every day in this country.
I think that there should be a lot more coming together, but the truth is we don't see the Asian community with us when one of our own is shot down, and I certainly cannot make everyone...
Keep shutting their stores. We see them yelling to us to get out of the store. We see them looking, and at the hair weave place, let me tell you something. Who won't go in another Asian-owned beauty supply ever again in life is Crystal James. Last time I was in there, I was in one in South Arlington, Texas. Yes, the great state of Texas, the great city of Arlington, where there's no racism. Over there on Forum 303, which is now Pioneer Parkway, walking through the store, and I don't know why I was in there to begin with, because anybody knows why I wear my hair now. I don't even need that many beauty products. But I was in there, and walking through the store, I would sit the store and come back in without my purse.
So they are suggesting, like the Walmart people, that you're going to steal. Like when Walmart asks you for your receipt.
Now, let's be clear. It took me 3 times and then repeating it to understand, because they don't even bother to learn to speak English well enough to dictate anything to me. So once I understood, and he was pointing so angrily at my purse by the end, I said, oh, this purse, you need me to take this purse outside? Okay, why? And because let me not mock them.
No, don't mock. Do not mock on my show.
That's not politically correct.
No, it's not.
We do not allow you to have this big bag. And he said, because they have too much shoplifting. Okay.
And he grouped you in the classification with the shoplifters. I want to say this before I close. Jenny's Hair Supply, which is huge, that a lot of people in North Texas, the Metroplex, go to, and they say, oh, Jenny's for the people because she handed out some cheap masks. You have to look at some ratted hair that they've had for 5 years, because you cannot take the hair out of the bag, but they expect you to buy it sight unseen, and you're comparing it to something that looks nothing like it. So this idea that we should be a part of everybody's struggle is insulting to me. And I think, while we are talking about voter suppression, those laws that are coming out now with the Jim Crow taste on it, it is to specifically stop black people, because we are the majority voters in this country, that when we want to, upon will, we will change the course of any race. This is Corey with the Black Tea Sip. I got to get out of here. I want to tell you I've enjoyed you. Leave me some comments. Like the show. If you're on YouTube, give me a like. If you're on Facebook, give me a like. Y'all always give me a lot of interactions and emojis while we're talking. But I want you to like the show, because Facebook is always trying to do something to me. I'll be here same bat time, same bat channel next Friday. Thank you, my good friend and political strategist, Crystal James. And always thank you to Angelo, who keeps the show always on flow. I want to tell you one more time, you melanated beauties who are sun-kissed by God's lips, love, peace, and hair grease. We'll do it again next Friday, and I'm out.
Another one of those. This is for my Q, down to earth, joint peace, baby. You know how we roll. There's so many that don't know. This goes out to my Q. Rest in peace, baby. You still here with me? What they don't know is the wars, the drama, the armor, the city, the farmer, the babies, the mama, the projects, the drugs, the children, the thugs, the tears, the hugs, the love, the slums, the funerals, the wakes, the churches, the coffins, the heartbroken mothers. It happens too often. The problems, the things we use to solve them. Yonkers, the Bronx,